Captain John Miller stood tall on the bridge of the U.S. Defender. Earth's first deep space exploratory vessel gleamed with the pride of humanity. After decades of technological advances, humans had finally reached the stars in a ship worthy of meeting other intelligent life. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lieutenant Susan Clark, her eyes fixed on the navigation screen. Miller nodded. "All personnel on alert. This is what we've trained for." The crew worked with quiet efficiency as the massive Vraxian diplomatic vessel came into view. It dwarfed the Defender, its dark metal surface etched with symbols of power that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. "Open communications," Miller ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, gray-skinned alien with piercing yellow eyes. Emperor Zolgar of the Vraxian Empire studied the humans with cold calculation. "We come in peace, representing Earth and humanity," Miller said with a respectful bow. "We seek friendship and knowledge." The Emperor's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Your species advances quickly. Too quickly, perhaps." Miller felt a chill but maintained his diplomatic composure. "We have much to learn from established galactic civilizations like yours." "Indeed you do," the Emperor replied. "We invite you aboard to formalize relations." After the communication ended, Commander Eric Peterson approached Miller. "Sir, something feels off about this." Miller sighed. "I agree, but we can't pass up this opportunity. Prepare a small diplomatic team. Lieutenant Clark, you'll remain in command if anything happens." Clark frowned. "With respect, sir." "That's an order, Lieutenant," Miller said gently. "Someone needs to get home if this goes sideways." Hours later, Miller led a team of 5 onto the Vraxian vessel. They were escorted through vast corridors to an enormous chamber where Emperor Zolgar sat on an elevated throne. "Captain Miller of Earth," the Emperor announced, "we have studied your world for some time." Miller stepped forward. "Then you know we seek peaceful cooperation." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "We know your kind destroys everything you touch. Your history is war. Your advancement is unchecked. Your ambition is dangerous. Every species has a difficult past," Miller replied. "We've learned from ours." "No," said the Emperor, rising. "You've merely hidden your nature temporarily. The Vraxian Empire has maintained galactic order for 20,000 years by recognizing threats before they fully emerge." The diplomatic team tensed as armed Vraxians moved closer. Miller tried again. "Emperor Zolgar, surely we can." "The proper order of the galaxy must be maintained," the Emperor interrupted. "Lesser species must understand their place." Without warning, the Emperor drew a ceremonial blade that glowed with strange energy. Miller stood his ground. "Whatever you're thinking, this won't end well. Humanity won't be intimidated." "This is not intimidation," Zolgar replied coldly. "This is instruction." The Emperor moved with shocking speed, driving the blade through Miller's chest before anyone could react. The captain gasped, eyes wide with pain and disbelief. "Record this," the Emperor commanded as Miller fell to his knees, "so all humans understand their proper place in our empire." Miller's team was held back by Vraxian guards as their captain's life ebbed away. His final words were barely a whisper. "Get home. Warn Earth." Back on the Defender, Lieutenant Clark watched in horror as the execution played out on the main screen. The Vraxians were broadcasting it deliberately. "Shields up," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "Prepare for emergency jump." The Defender shuddered as Vraxian weapons locked on. Engineer Greg Daniels called from the engine room. "Lieutenant, we need 3 minutes to charge the jump drive." "We don't have 3 minutes," Clark replied, taking the captain's chair. Evasive maneuvers, all power to shields. The ship rocked violently as it absorbed the first hits. Communications Officer Olivia Ward looked up from her station. "Lieutenant, they're transmitting continuously to ensure everyone sees." "Download that transmission," Clark ordered grimly. "Earth needs to see what happened." As the Defender twisted and turned, barely avoiding the Vraxians' main weapons, Clark made a silent promise to her fallen captain. The Vraxians thought they were sending a message of dominance. They had no idea what they had just started. Earth was about to show the galaxy what happened when humanity went to war. The U.S. Defender limped back to Earth with severe damage to its hull. Lieutenant Susan Clark had managed to execute a desperate jump to escape the Vraxian warships, but the cost was high. 2 crew members were dead, and many more were injured. As Earth came into view on the main screen, Clark tightened her grip on the captain's chair. Captain Miller's chair. She had not slept in 3 days, refusing to rest until she completed his final order. Warn Earth. Open a channel to Space Command, she ordered, her voice rough with emotion. Admiral Paul Johnson was waiting when the transmission came through. His face turned ashen as Clark sent the footage of Captain Miller's execution. "My God," he whispered. "John." "They murdered him to make a point, sir," Clark said. "The Vraxians see us as a threat to be controlled." Johnson's expression hardened. "Get your people home, Lieutenant. I'll handle things from here." Within hours, the footage spread across Earth. News channels played it on repeat. Social media exploded with outrage. In streets worldwide, people gathered in stunned silence, watching public screens as humanity witnessed its first casualty in the stars. In Washington, D.C., an emergency meeting of world leaders convened. Old enemies sat side by side, united by a common threat. "The Vraxians have made their intentions clear," the U.S. President said. "They see our advancement as a threat to their control of the galaxy." China's leader nodded gravely. "For the first time in our history, all of humanity faces an external enemy. We must respond as one." Russia's president leaned forward. "Our military satellites have detected unusual activity near Mars. The Vraxians are already moving into our solar system." Admiral Johnson stood to address the assembly. He had aged a decade and a day, the loss of his friend weighing heavily on him. "Captain Miller was not just my friend. He was the best of us," Johnson said. "The Vraxians killed him to show us our place. We need to show them theirs." The assembly hall fell silent. "I propose a united Earth Defense Force," Johnson continued. "All nations, all resources, all military assets pooled together. This is no longer about countries. This is about species survival." The vote was unanimous. As leaders mobilized their militaries, scientists gathered at a secure facility in Switzerland. Dr. Linda Brown, Earth's leading expert on the alien technology recovered from previous encounters, addressed the assembled minds. "The Vraxians have a technological advantage," she admitted, "but they've grown comfortable in their superiority. We need to use that against them." Engineer Frank Martinez stepped forward with a datapad. "I've analyzed the footage from the Defender. There's something unusual about Vraxian shield technology. I think we can exploit it." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Clark, now promoted to captain, stood in the massive hangar of Earth's orbital shipyard. The U.S. Avenger, a new warship built with reverse-engineered alien tech, was being prepared for launch. "It's not as big as their ships," said Commander Sam Lewis, her new second-in-command. "It doesn't need to be," Clark replied. "It just needs to be smarter." Across Earth, factories converted to military production. Children trained in simulators designed to match Vraxian combat patterns. Former enemies became training partners. The entire planet was transforming into a war machine. Admiral Johnson stood before the newly formed Earth Defense Council. "The Vraxians believe they sent us a message of submission. They expect us to cower or surrender. They don't understand humans at all." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's rapidly growing fleet. "In 1 week, we launch our response. All ships, all weapons, all soldiers moving as one." Johnson's eyes burned with determination. "The Vraxians took one of ours. We're coming for all of theirs." The council nodded in solemn agreement. On the main viewing screen, technicians finished painting the name on the flagship's hull. U.S. Defender I. Beneath it, in smaller letters, For Captain Miller. The message to the Vraxian Empire was being prepared for broadcast on all frequencies. It was brief but clear. Earth was declaring total war. The Vraxian command ship hovered above their forward base on Europa, Jupiter's icy moon. Inside the strategy chamber, General Krelvor reviewed the latest data on human military movements. "These humans adapt quickly," he said to his officers. "Too quickly." His science officer, Mektarn, displayed a hologram of a human brain. "We've discovered something concerning. Human neural pathways show unusual flexibility. They learn combat patterns at 3 times the rate of other species we've conquered." Krelvor hissed in displeasure. "The Emperor assured us they would be simple to subjugate. There's more," Mektarn continued. "Their bodies produce excessive adrenaline under stress. It enhances their reaction time and decision-making in combat. Biological anomalies won't save them." Krelvor said dismissively. "Our fleet outnumbers theirs 50 to 1. Far from Europa, hidden in the asteroid belt, engineer Frank Martinez worked inside a small, unmarked ship. For 2 weeks straight, he had been modifying its shield generator. "Try it now," he told his assistant, Olivia Ward. Olivia activated the system. The ship disappeared from all sensors. "It works," she exclaimed. "The Vraxians won't see us coming." Frank allowed himself a small smile. Their sensor technology depends on detecting energy signatures. By dispersing our shield's energy output into thousands of microfluctuations, we become invisible to them. On Earth, Admiral Johnson addressed the first strike team. Commander Lisa Wright stood at attention with her squad of 20 elite soldiers. "Your mission is simple but crucial," Johnson said. "Infiltrate the Vraxian outpost on Europa, gather intelligence, and, if possible, disable their communications array." Commander Wright nodded. "We won't let you down, sir." "Remember," Johnson added, "this is our first direct action against them. The whole war could depend on what we learn today." The stealth ship carrying Wright's team approached Europa using Martinez's new shield technology. The massive Vraxian vessels patrolling the moon didn't detect them. "It's actually working," whispered Wright as they glided past a Vraxian cruiser. The team landed on Europa's dark side and began their trek across the icy surface. Each soldier wore a new type of combat suit designed to mimic Vraxian heat signatures. "Their base is just over this ridge," Wright said, checking her scanner. "Remember, we need prisoners for intelligence." The human strike team moved with a speed and coordination that would have shocked the Vraxians. They entered the base through a maintenance tunnel, planting small devices on key systems as they went. When they reached the command center, Wright gave the signal. The devices activated simultaneously, shutting down power throughout the base. In the darkness, the humans' night vision gave them a crucial advantage. Within minutes, they had secured the command center and taken 3 Vraxian officers captive. "Download everything," Wright ordered as her tech specialist connected to the Vraxian network. One of the captured Vraxians laughed coldly. "You think this small victory means anything? The Empire spans 1,000 worlds." Wright leaned in close. "We're just getting started." Back on Earth, Dr. Alan Powell studied the data from the Europa raid. His eyes widened as he discovered the locations of 7 more Vraxian bases throughout the solar system. "They've been watching us for years," he told Admiral Johnson, "building staging areas for a full invasion." Johnson's face remained calm. "Then we hit them before they're ready." In orbit around Mars, Captain Clark prepared the U.S. Avenger for its first combat mission. The ship's new quantum drives hummed with power. "All systems ready, Captain," reported Commander Lewis. Clark looked at the holographic display showing 3 Vraxian warships near Phobos, unaware of the Avenger's presence. "The Vraxians think they know warfare," Clark said to her crew. "They've spent millennia conquering species that surrender at the first show of force." She activated the ship's new weapon systems. "Let's show them what happens when they pick a fight with a species that doesn't know how to give up." The Avenger suddenly appeared on the Vraxian sensors, far closer than should have been possible. By the time they raised shields, Clark's ship had already fired its first shots. The battle for Mars had begun, and with it, humanity's first test in interstellar warfare. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the Vraxian command carrier. General Krelvor stormed onto the bridge, his yellow eyes burning with rage. "How did they destroy 3 of our warships?" he demanded. His tactical officer trembled. "The human vessel appeared and disappeared from our sensors. We couldn't lock weapons properly." "Impossible," Krelvor hissed. "No species has that technology. The humans call it the Ghost Protocol," the officer replied. Their ship, Avenger, jumped to 5 different locations in 30 seconds. Krelvor smashed his fist into a console. "The Emperor must be informed. Prepare my shuttle." Across the solar system, humanity celebrated its first victory. At Earth's moon base, Admiral Johnson watched the footage of the battle near Mars with quiet satisfaction. "Captain Clark performed brilliantly," he told his officers. "The Vraxians never expected us to fight back so effectively." Dr. Powell stood up. "Sir, we've decoded more of their communications. The Vraxians are calling for reinforcements. A full battle fleet is heading for Alpha Centauri." Johnson frowned. "Our first colony. 5,000 civilians. They think by destroying our foothold beyond the solar system, they'll break our will," Dr. Powell said. "Then we need to show them how wrong they are." Johnson turned to his communications officer. "Send word to Captain Clark. The Avenger needs to reach Alpha Centauri before the Vraxian fleet." On the Avenger, Captain Clark studied the tactical display. Her ship had taken damage in the Mars battle, but the crew had made repairs quickly. "Alpha Centauri is 4 light-years away," Commander Lewis pointed out. "Even with our new drives, we'll barely make it in time." "We won't be alone," Clark replied. She brought up another display showing 12 Earth ships converging on their position. "Admiral Johnson is sending everything we have." The journey to Alpha Centauri pushed the human ships to their limits. The quantum drives were experimental, and engineers worked around the clock to keep them stable. When they arrived, the colony came into view, a beautiful outpost of humanity built on a terraformed moon. In orbit above it loomed the massive shapes of 30 Vraxian warships. "They're already here," Lewis whispered. Clark stood from her captain's chair. "All ships activate Ghost Protocol. We hit them from all sides at once." The Earth fleet split into attack groups. The Avenger led the first strike, appearing suddenly between 2 Vraxian destroyers. Their new weapons, plasma cannons reverse-engineered from captured Vraxian technology, cut through enemy shields. The battle raged for hours. Human ships darted in and out of sensor range, striking and retreating before the Vraxians could respond. But the alien vessels were powerful, and 3 Earth ships were lost in the first wave. On the colony below, civilians watched the space battle with terror and hope. Among them was Sam Wilson, a colony administrator who had helped build this new home for humanity. If they break through, he told his family, head for the emergency bunkers. His daughter pointed at the sky. "Look!" A Vraxian landing craft was descending toward the colony, escorted by fighter ships. In orbit, Captain Clark saw it too. "They're going for the civilians. Commander Lewis, take a strike team and intercept that landing craft." Lewis and 20 crew members boarded the Avenger's assault shuttle. They raced through the atmosphere, weapons ready. When they landed at the colony's main square, Vraxian soldiers were already disembarking from their craft. Lewis led her team in a direct assault. The Vraxians, used to enemies who fled before them, were unprepared for humans who charged straight into danger. The battle was fierce but brief. Back in space, the tide was turning. Dr. Powell's quantum displacement technology allowed the Earth ships to coordinate their attacks with impossible precision. The Vraxian fleet, designed to fight conventional enemies, found its formations disrupted and its communications jammed. General Krelvor, watching from his command ship, faced a decision no Vraxian commander had made in centuries. "Order a retreat," he finally said, his voice hollow with disbelief. As the Vraxian ships turned away from Alpha Centauri, humanity had won its first major victory. But everyone knew the real war had only just begun. Lieutenant Kate Morgan adjusted her disguise one final time. The artificial skin felt strange on her face, but it made her look Vraxian enough to pass a quick inspection. Her 5-person team was similarly disguised, all of them wearing the gray uniforms of Vraxian data technicians. "Remember," she whispered, "we have 12 hours to get in, extract the data, and get out." They stood in the shadows of Nexus Station, a massive Vraxian data repository orbiting a distant gas giant. After the defeat at Alpha Centauri, Admiral Johnson had approved this high-risk mission to gather intelligence on the Empire's true military capabilities. "Security patrol coming," warned Steve Russell, the team's tech expert. "Look busy." A pair of Vraxian guards marched past, barely glancing at what they thought were fellow Vraxians performing routine maintenance. Once they passed, Morgan led her team deeper into the station. Using access codes taken from captured Vraxian officers, they reached the central data core, a towering column of light and energy storing the collective knowledge of the Empire. "I've never seen anything like this," Russell whispered, connecting his device to an access port. "Their entire history must be in here." "Focus on military deployments and weaknesses," Morgan reminded him. Russell worked quickly, copying massive amounts of data. "Wait," he said suddenly. "I'm finding something else. Records of other species. Hundreds of them." Morgan looked over his shoulder. "What about them?" "They're all listed as processed or cleansed," Russell said, his voice growing cold. "These are genocide records. The Vraxians have been systematically wiping out any species that challenges them." Morgan's blood ran cold. "Download everything. Earth needs to see this." Back on Earth, communications specialist Ryan Bennett received Morgan's transmission. He worked through the night with Dr. Powell to decode and translate the enormous data cache. When Admiral Johnson arrived the next morning, Bennett was pale and had not slept. "Sir, you need to see this," Bennett said, bringing up a holographic display. "The Vraxians have destroyed over 300 species in the last 10,000 years. Any civilization that developed faster than light travel was deemed a threat and eliminated." Johnson stared at the endless list of extinct civilizations. "They planned the same for us." "There's more," Bennett continued. "The data contains frequencies for direct communication with all Vraxian-controlled worlds. We can broadcast to every species under their rule at once." Johnson's eyes narrowed. "Can we verify the data is accurate?" "It's their own internal records, sir," Bennett confirmed. "They never expected anyone to access it." Johnson made his decision quickly. "Prepare a broadcast package with proof of these atrocities. Include footage of our battles showing the Vraxians can be defeated." "What about the risk to Lieutenant Morgan's team?" Bennett asked. "They knew this was a one-way mission," Johnson said grimly. "Our priority now is to light a fire the Vraxians can't put out." In his palace on the Vraxian homeworld, Emperor Zolgar received the news of the data breach with cold fury. "Find the infiltrators and execute them," he ordered. "Then prepare the cleansing protocol for any world that responds to their propaganda." His advisor stepped forward cautiously. "Emperor, the cleansing protocol would require diverting ships from the front lines against Earth." "Then do it," Zolgar snapped. "This infection of rebellion must be burned out completely." On Nexus Station, alarms blared as Vraxian security forces discovered the infiltration. Lieutenant Morgan and her team were cut off from their escape route. "The data is transmitting," Russell confirmed as they took cover behind storage units. "Earth has it now." Morgan checked her weapon. "Then we've done our job." When Vraxian soldiers surrounded them, Morgan's team fought with the fierce determination that had become humanity's hallmark in this war. Across the galaxy, thousands of communication systems suddenly activated. On hundreds of subjugated worlds, beings of all forms watched in astonishment as proof of Vraxian atrocities played on every screen. They saw humans, a species they had never encountered, fighting back successfully against their oppressors. They heard Earth's message, translated into all known languages. The Vraxian Empire has committed genocide across the stars. We are fighting back. Join us. As the broadcast ended, the first sparks of rebellion began to ignite across the galaxy. The war had just expanded beyond anything the Vraxians had prepared for. The meeting room was hidden deep inside an asteroid at the edge of a nebula. This place, nicknamed Haven by its discoverers, was invisible to Vraxian sensors. Representatives from 12 different species sat around a large table, with Admiral Johnson representing Earth. The Vraxians have begun their cleansing protocol on worlds that joined the rebellion, said Kretal, a tall, blue-skinned being from the Andromeda system. 3 planets have already been bombed back to their Stone Age. But many more have driven the Vraxians out completely, added Zora, a reptilian female whose people had been under Empire control for 5 centuries. Your broadcast gave us the courage and knowledge we needed. Admiral Johnson nodded. Then it's time to coordinate our efforts. Separately, none of us can defeat the Empire. Together, we have a chance. The meeting lasted for days as the representatives shared information about Vraxian weaknesses, tactics, and deployments. Military strategies were compared, and cultural differences were set aside in the face of a common enemy. By the end, they had formed the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Admiral Johnson was elected as its first commander, with representatives from each species forming a leadership council. Our first priority must be defending vulnerable worlds from the cleansing protocol, Johnson told the council. Captain Clark will coordinate our fleet movements. Captain Clark, now commanding a multi-species battle group, studied the star map showing Vraxian fleet movements. They're spreading themselves thin, she observed. The Emperor's ego won't let him ignore any rebellion, no matter how small. Her new second officer, a 6-limbed strategist named Galver, pointed to a sector near the galactic core. My people have legends of another species that once fought the Vraxians to a standstill, the Eldari. They vanished 3,000 years ago, but rumors say they still exist in the Forbidden Zones. Clark looked at the strange, empty region on the map. Then that's where I need to go. On Earth, Engineer Martins and Dr. Powell worked with scientists from 5 alien worlds. Their laboratory hummed with activity as they combined technologies in ways never before attempted. The Vraxians have a biological weakness we never knew about, said Lyra, a scientist whose transparent skin revealed the complex organs beneath. Their neural network is extremely sensitive to certain frequencies. Martinez nodded. If we combine that with our quantum displacement technology, Dr. Powell completed the thought, we could disrupt their hive mind communication. Every Vraxian ship coordinates through that network. We'll call it the Miller Protocol, Martinez said quietly. The room fell silent in respect for Earth's fallen captain, whose death had sparked this unprecedented alliance. On the Vraxian homeworld, Emperor Zolgar faced growing dissent for the first time in his long rule. His war council gathered in the Imperial Chamber, tension thick in the air. We have lost control of 17 sectors, reported his military commander. The rebels are using human tactics, hit and run attacks, targeting our communication arrays, disappearing before we can respond. And the humans themselves, Zolgar demanded. They grow bolder. Our spies report they are seeking the Eldari. The Emperor's face darkened. Impossible. The Eldari are gone. Perhaps not, Emperor. There have been sightings near the Forbidden Zones. Zulgar rose from his throne. Recall all fleets. Concentrate our forces to defend the homeworld and key military installations. Let the lesser worlds burn if they must. And the humans. They've become the heart of this rebellion. Cut out the heart, and the body dies. The Emperor's voice was cold. Find their leaders. Find their homeworld. We will make such an example of Earth that no species will dare challenge us again for 100,000 years. As Vraxian fleets began to withdraw from occupied worlds, the Alliance prepared for the next phase of the war. On the edge of the Forbidden Zones, Captain Clark's ship disappeared into the swirling gases of a dark nebula, seeking a legend that might turn the tide of war. The hunt for the Eldari had begun. 50 Vraxian strongholds came under attack simultaneously. Alliance ships appear out of nowhere, their weapons striking with devastating precision. On the bridge of the Alliance flagship, Admiral Johnson watched the tactical display as green lights blinked across the map, indicating successful operations. Phase 1 is complete, reported his tactical officer. The Vraxians are scrambling to respond, but their command structure is in chaos. Johnson nodded. Begin Phase 2. Across the battlefield, Alliance ships activated a new weapon system. The Miller Protocol sent invisible waves of energy that disrupted the Vraxian neural network. Enemy ships suddenly lost coordination, their movements becoming erratic and confused. It's working, Engineer Martinez reported from the science station. Their hive-mind connection is breaking down. Dr. Powell studied the readings. The effect is temporary. They'll adapt eventually. We don't need forever, Johnson replied. We just need long enough. In the Forbidden Zones, Captain Clark's ship emerged from the dark nebula. They had been searching for weeks, following ancient star charts and cryptic clues. Her crew was tired, but determination kept them going. Captain, called Commander Lewis, sensors are detecting something ahead. A structure of some kind. Clark looked at the main screen. A massive space station appeared, seemingly built into an asteroid. Its design was unlike anything they had seen before, elegant curves and spirals that somehow looked both ancient and advanced. Hail them, Clark ordered. The screen remained dark, but a voice responded, musical and strangely echoing. Humans, you have traveled far from your home. Clark stood tall. I am Captain Susan Clark of Earth. We seek the Eldari. The Eldari have remained hidden for 3,000 years. Why should we reveal ourselves now? Because the Vraxian Empire threatens all free species, just as they once threatened you. Silence followed, lasting so long that the crew began to exchange worried glances. Then the screen activated, showing a tall, luminescent being with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to contain stars. I am Ilara, speaker for the Eldari Council. We have watched your kind's resistance with interest. Then you know we need your help, Clark said. Ilara studied her. The last time we confronted the Vraxians, both our civilizations nearly perished. What makes you think this time will be different? Because this time, they won't face just the Eldari. They'll face an alliance of species fighting together. Ilara seemed to consider this. We will meet with your alliance, but we make no promises beyond that. Back at Haven, Admiral Johnson received the news of Clark's success with amazement. The Eldari are actually real, he said. And they're coming here. When the Eldari delegation arrived, they'd brought something more valuable than military support. Knowledge. They possessed detailed maps of the Vraxian homeworld, which had been kept secret for millennia. Their central hive lies beneath this mountain range, Ilara explained, pointing to the holographic map. Their species originated in these underground caverns before they spread to the stars. Johnson leaned forward. You're saying we can strike directly at their heart? It is possible, Ilara confirmed, but the defenses are formidable. No fleet has reached their homeworld in 20,000 years. On the other side of the galaxy, Emperor Zolgar watched with growing rage as his forces suffered defeat after defeat. The Miller Protocol had spread chaos through his fleets, and now worlds that had been loyal for centuries were rising in rebellion. Enough, he hissed to his commanders. Recall all ships, every vessel, every soldier. Return to protect the homeworld. His advisor looked alarmed. Emperor, that would mean abandoning our entire empire. The empire can be rebuilt, Zolgar replied, but only if we survive. As Vraxian ships began their retreat across the galaxy, the Alliance prepared for the final phase of the war. A combined fleet of human and allied vessels gathered near Haven. the largest military force ever assembled outside of Vraxian control. At its center was the newly commissioned U.S. Defender Aya, named in honor of Captain Miller, and the ship where humanity's struggle began. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said Captain Clark, now returned from her mission. Johnson looked out at the vast fleet. "Then let's end this war. Set course for the Vraxian homeworld." The Vraxian homeworld hung in space like a jewel, a blue-green planet surrounded by thousands of warships. The Alliance fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, facing the largest concentration of Vraxian military power ever assembled. Admiral Johnson stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defender I, his face calm despite the overwhelming odds. The view screen showed so many enemy ships that they looked like a solid wall of metal. "All ships, prepare to engage," he ordered. "Activate the Miller Protocol at maximum power." Captain Clark, commanding the first attack wing, looked at her tactical display. "Admiral, requesting permission to lead the initial strike." Johnson nodded. "Granted, Captain. It seems fitting." Before the attack began, Johnson opened a channel to the Vraxian command. "This is Admiral Paul Johnson of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. We offer you one chance to surrender and face justice for your crimes against sentient species across the galaxy." On the Vraxian homeworld, Emperor Zolgar laughed at the message. "The arrogance of these humans is remarkable," he told his commanders. "They think they can dictate terms to us." He opened a return channel. "This is Emperor Zolgar. Your species was marked for conquest from the moment we discovered you. I personally executed your Captain Miller to demonstrate your proper place in the galaxy. Now I will finish what I started." Johnson closed the channel. "All ships, commence attack." The battle erupted across space. Alliance ships used every tactic they had developed during the war, while the Miller Protocol caused chaos in the Vraxian fleet. Ships that should have moved in perfect coordination now fired on each other or left gaps in their defense. The Eldari vessels, with technology unlike anything seen in millennia, cut through Vraxian shields as if they weren't there. Other Alliance ships followed in their wake, pushing toward the planet. Captain Clark led her wing straight toward the Emperor's flagship. "All ships, focus fire on their central command vessel," she ordered. The Vraxians fought desperately to protect their ruler, but the Alliance pressed forward. After hours of intense combat, Clark's ship broke through the final defensive line. "We've got a clear shot at the surface," Commander Lewis reported. Clark nodded. "Commence landing operation." On the planet below, Emperor Zolgar retreated to his throne room deep beneath the surface. His guards prepared for a final stand as Alliance forces landed and fought their way through the capital city. Captain Clark led a small team through the underground corridors, following the maps provided by the Eldari. They encountered heavy resistance but pushed forward, driven by the memory of Captain Miller and all those who had died in this war. Finally, they reached the massive doors of the Imperial throne room. "Breaching charges," Clark ordered. The doors blew open, and Clark entered with her weapon ready. Emperor Zolgar sat on his throne, surrounded by his personal guard. "So," he said, "the human comes to kill me." "No," Clark replied. "I'm not like you." The Vraxian guards attacked, but Clark's team was prepared. The fight was brief but intense. When it ended, only Clark and the Emperor remained conscious. Clark approached the throne, her weapon aimed at Zolgar. The Emperor stared at her with hatred. "Do it," he hissed. "Prove you are no better than us." Clark thought of Captain Miller, how he had died believing in diplomacy and peace. She lowered her weapon. "Emperor Zolgar, you are under arrest for crimes against countless species across the galaxy. You will stand trial before representatives of all the worlds you've harmed." As Alliance forces secured the Vraxian capital, news of the Emperor's capture spread across the galaxy. Celebrations erupted on hundreds of worlds as species that had lived under Vraxian oppression for generations finally tasted freedom. 1 month later, representatives from over 200 worlds gathered to form a new galactic council. The Vraxian Empire was dismantled. Its territories returned to their native species or granted independence. At the center of the new council chamber, a memorial was unveiled. It showed Captain John Miller extending his hand in friendship. Beneath it was inscribed his final recorded words from his mission log. The measure of a civilization is not its power, but its compassion. Admiral Johnson stood before the assembly. This war began with an act of cruelty. It ends with an act of justice. Let us build something better than what came before. As the representatives applauded, humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors like the Vraxians, but as the spark that had ignited freedom across the galaxy.